Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Low Season Traveller Insider Guides. I'm your host, Jed Brown, founder of Low Season Traveller, and this week I was honoured to be invited onto Canada's #1 award-winning travel talk show, which is called A Canada. The show is hosted by two really awesome guys called Greg and Colin Girard, who remarkably took 10 years out of their lives and careers to travel all across their homeland in Canada to discover as much of their destination as they possibly could. Today, they run Canada's #1 travel planning website for Canada and also the #1 hit travel talk show in Canada. And to top all of that, they are genuinely the best possible advert for Canada that you could ever imagine. They kindly invited me onto their show this week for a catch-up, and I should point out that these guys go live at 7 p.m. their time, which is 3 a.m. UK time. So if I sound a little groggy on this, you'll understand why. Before we hand over to Greg and Colin, I would usually edit out the intro, but on this occasion, these guys gave me the most incredible introduction that I'm unashamedly going to keep it in, and I may even take an excerpt to use as my ringtone. Get a brew, sit back, and have a listen to these masters at work. Enjoy.
So that brings us to our next guest, Mr. Jed Brown from. How do you like this little tribute to Jed? How do you like this little tribute?
Well done.
Yeah. You wonder where he's from? Can you figure it out?
Who's gonna guess where he's from? Yeah.
So Jed here is a bank of knowledge. He's over 25 years of experience in the global tourism and travel. This guy's been all over, right? He's going to have such insight. Buckle in, everybody. This is going to be really good. And he's the founder of Low Season Traveller, the CEO founder. We'll find out what he likes to go by. And just to give you a little background, Low Season is the world's first travel organization entirely dedicated, to the promotion of tourism during the low season. What a niche.
Yes. Which is when everybody is looking for tourism.
Best prices, no crowds, perfect timing. I mean, come on. That's what people are looking for. So he's also the director of EMEA, and that's the Europe, Middle East, Africa division of the World Tourism Association for Culture and Heritage. Another organization. I entice all of you to look them up. They've got some really great stuff on there. They're all about preserving and the culture and the heritage of countries and communities and regions all around the world. He's a presenter at many travel industry events. He just recently hosted Keeping the Dream Alive webinar with Chris Flynn and Carolyn Childs. And I'll tell you, Colin, in the last 3 months, I've been webinaring myself to death. And I've seen a lot of them out there. And I'll tell you, that is one. And I think that was 11 o'clock my time, right? So when all you little newbies and little whiners go to bed, I'm up there hanging out with Jed and Caroline and the rest of the world. You guys are dreaming about popcorn and whatever you guys. What do you dream about anyways?
Way to go, tough guy.
Yes. So let me invite this man to the show. And let's see what he has to say. What do you think, Cole? Should we let him on?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's do it.
Jed.
Welcome to the show, Jed.
Hey, Jed.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the incredible hospitality in your green room, guys. I've got to say, very impressive.
Love it. I told you a big budget. Yeah. I hope you didn't have too much. No,
I left a little bit for you guys.
Right.
We only take loonies and toonies for tips too, buddy.
Okay. Lucky then.
So, Jed, welcome to our show. Thank you
very much.
Coming here from the United Kingdom. We're both extremely excited to hear your input on what's going on out there. And allowing us to have you on the show to give us some insight, I think, is a phenomenal opportunity. So I think what we're going to do, Jed, is we're gonna fire off some questions to you, let you run the show, let you tell us what you think and what you feel. And I know that our guests will enjoy it. So hey, Jed, it's no surprise. We knock introductions out of the park, right? But
you absolutely do. Absolutely do.
But what we want to do is we'd like to get a little snapshot of who Jed and Low Season Traveller is from the seat of the co-founder and CEO.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Well, thank you very much for that, and thank you for that introduction. I don't think I can ever live up to that to that introduction, but I will of course try to. Look, essentially, I always say I'm a tourism man. I fell into this industry at the age of, probably in my early 20s, with a job at Thomas Cook at my local airport in Manchester. Went on selling holidays, which was, obviously selling people's dreams, and just fell in love with the notion of travel, and traveling around. And I worked for a number of companies, which, Thomas Cook, Kuoni, all of this. But look, essentially, the essence of me is I just am curious about the world that we live in. I love every aspect of the world that we live in, and I guess for all of our listeners out there today, the best way to sum it up is I run a podcast series for Low Season Traveler. And on that podcast series, everybody always says, Jesus, you are enthused about everywhere. Is there anywhere that you've been that you wouldn't recommend or go back to? And honestly, there isn't. I do. I absolutely love the world, and I love everything about it. Nice. And I love, I love the destinations in the rain. I love them in the cold. I love them in the sun. I'm just passionate for all the world's destinations, and that's why I set up Low Season Traveler, because at the time it was about 2 years ago, just under 2 years ago, when, having worked in the industry for so long, it just happened upon me that actually I was trying to figure out a solution to over-tourism. We're starting to see a lot of over-tourism all around the world, especially in Europe. And I figured, what can we do? And, you look at the big stats and that there's roughly an 80-20 rule. 80% of all visitors come during the same 20% of the year, broadly speaking. And I was like, well, that's just crazy. Is it that the destinations are poor in the low seasons, and then you do research, and of course it's wonderful in the low seasons. Actually, it's better because it's less crowded, and I can't stand crowds. So I was like, okay, there must be a company that does this, and nobody in the history of the travel industry ever decided bizarrely decided to promote low season travel. And I figured, okay, that's my mission. But on that point, we kind of slightly touched on this just in the off-air part before. The fact that of all of these wealthy, big tourism organizations around the world, and I'm not directly having a go at them, but I am slightly. World Travel and Tourism Council, United Nations World Tourism Organization, all of the big national tourism organizations. What they never, ever in their history decided, we need to try and crack this seasonality issue, that we have destinations that are worth visiting during the low seasons. What, really? None of them thought of that? It took a guy from the middle of Manchester, just one rainy day in October, to figure that out?
I think we just lost Jed. See you later, boys. You're on your own.
He's been censored.
And you know what? Right now, he's there in his United Kingdom world, and we love that place, and we love that Jed, man. But I bet you he's right now working on how come he popped out of the room. Where do you think?
I bet that is his main priority right now. Yeah.
I think he might be running away from our tough questions.
Well, yeah, he looked a little fearful, a little scared there. Needed to go take a breath outside and go for a hike.
Yeah. Well, that just gives you a nice little segue into, yay, Canadian internet. We're still here. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right. So, so anyways, to give you a little bit before Jed finds his way back is,
come on, Jed.
This whole low season traveler take, right? Pretty wild, right?
It's huge. Like you say, it's like half the year.
Yep.
And I mean, people are just missing out because you avoid the crowds.
Yep.
Yeah.
She goes, hi. She goes, I love the show, guys. That would be me and you, not Jed, because Jed's not here. Oh, here he is.
You can't.
No, hold it. He's back. He wants to be your friend.
Oh yeah.
We're bringing you back, buddy. Yeah.
There he is.
You can hear me now, okay?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We just took over.
Absolutely bizarre.
We just took over selling low season traveler.
Oh, thank you
so much. We don't need you anymore, Jed.
Yeah, we're done, Jed.
How absolutely bizarre, because the Wi-Fi here is usually pretty good, but obviously it's not a patch on the Canadian Wi-Fi. There you go.
Yeah, we plugged it here. We gave a shout out to Canadian Wi-Fi.
Love it.
Yeah. So, anyways,
Love it.
Jed, let's pick up low season traveler.
Yes. So broadly speaking, we try to promote tourism destinations all around the world, but only during the low seasons. And the reason that we do it only during the low seasons is because, quite frankly, the peak seasons are there for everyone else. Everyone sells the peak seasons, and it's there isn't an issue there. In fact, there's a problem there that we need to work on. And look, broadly speaking, I always say I sort of bring this down to almost like childlike level, because it is childlike in its simplicity. If I imagine each of the months, and give this in any destination, but I always say, bizarrely, I think of this as baked beans. I don't know if this is a British thing or not, but I imagine that I've got 12 cans in front of me, which represent the months of the year. And I've got 3 cans which are overflowing with beans. And I've got just a trickle in the bottom of a couple of beans in each of the others. And I've got big tourism officials saying, you know what, we need bigger cans in the middle 3. You need to replace those cans and get bigger ones. And I'm like, Jesus, really? No, we don't. We need to get beans in the other cans and spread them out a little bit more. Yep. So the seasonality issue across the world, it's existed forever. It's been a constant problem. And make no bones about it, we created, in the travel industry, the tourism industry, we created this problem. Because when people said to us, hey, Greg, so when's the best time to visit, Calgary? You typically would have said, hey, it's these 3 months of the year. That's the best time. That's when everybody comes. It's wonderful. And, that basically is saying that the rest of the year, not that good. And
I don't know if you should use my name in that one.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. No, but I did. I was a travel agent. I was a high street travel agent. And one of the questions people came in is they say, look, thinking about going to Thailand. When's the best time to go to Thailand? Yeah. And if you put it on Google, there's loads of different sites and blogs. It's the best time to travel to whatever, and that expert or blogger or whatever is telling you the best time to go. And it's like, Jesus, there's no bad time to travel anywhere. There is a unique experience to be had at different times of the year. Absolutely. Yes. Is it the same experience in Calgary in December as it is in July? No. Is it better or worse? Well, no. It's not about better or worse. It's just different. Depends what you're looking for, and depends what you've got an appreciation for. That's what it's about.
Yep. And that's the beauty with Canada is because we do have two distinct, but our winters basically from take out the Vancouver Island West Coast, we get a ton of snow. So we have so much potential to build that part of our industry, and our ski hills do well at that. But the only one that benefits from a ski hill is the community the ski hill's in. You're not getting the 100-kilometer away, which has the same snow, but no ski hill. Yeah. So we have that sort of back and forth discussion here when we're talking to different types of communities, and it's bizarre sometimes how they justify these sort of reasons, and I think reasons is being very polite, because I think if it was and we are on air, but I'm going to use it, I think it's excuses myself.
Yeah, I think it's going for the easy option. To be honest, I think a lot of the time is, it's easy. It's easy to sell. Manchester in the summertime. The very short summer that we get. It's easy. It's dry, it's sunny, and everything else. But it is more challenging if you want to start talking about Manchester. You were talking before about this destination. I'm dying to know where it is. That has something like over 200 days of rain a year, and Manchester is famously known for being a rainy city. And there's a part of me that sort of thinks, again, if you are going to go to a destination that's famous for being rainy, then I want it to rain, and that's okay actually, because Manchester, for me, it's not about rain. There's so much more to Manchester than rain. Manchester was the heart of the Industrial Revolution. People don't know it. Manchester, despite being inland, this is a little quirk for you, was actually the most significant port in the whole of Europe years ago during the Industrial Revolution. And that was because we had the big cotton mills. So it was known as Cottonopolis. It was the textile capital of the world. People don't know this, and that's what I try and encourage people to do when I'm not a tour guide, but whenever anybody visits us from overseas, from China or Japan or anywhere else for that matter, I always bring them on a walking tour of Manchester and show them my Manchester through my eyes, and I try and put a little bit more context to it. And they always tell me, gosh, I never knew what a wonderful city Manchester is. I'm like, well, there you go.
But, and it's all part of that education process, right?
It is absolutely, and that's a job that we all have in tourism. We all have a responsibility to do that. Like I say, I don't work for Marketing Manchester. I'm nothing to do with inbound tourism in Manchester or indeed the UK. But I work in the travel industry. I've got I'm a host as well. If anybody is thinking about coming to Manchester, let me tell you, it's an absolutely wonderful city, and the people are incredibly friendly. The history and culture we've got is just out of this world. I'm really proud of it, and I think, I'm proud of it, by the way, in the low season as well as the high season. Come in January, and honestly, we'll show you a good time. Trust me, you'll have a great time anyway, and I'll show you stuff that'll blow your mind.
You're number one on our list.
There you go. Come on, please do.
Yeah. Okay, Jed. Here's something I read that sort of resonated with me the other day when I was researching the great Jed Brown. I saw you say here, it said Jed, I read that you are deeply passionate about the advantages of travel to engender cross-cultural understanding. And I thought that is so nice. So could you maybe share with our audience what exactly is this advantage and this understanding that you're speaking of?
Okay. I think, recent events in the news actually kind of highlight this as well. There is a lot of different prejudices in the world, and I think a lot of that comes from a place of ignorance and a lack of understanding of different cultures and so on and so forth. So for me, as I've traveled around the world, when I go to Japan and I learn more about the culture in Japan, and I'm speaking to the people of Japan and I understand the history of Japan, then I start to really understand the Japanese people and the culture, and it gives me a completely new insight to these people. Now, it's really hard to hate and have prejudice on people that you truly understand and know that they're just like you. And I think the more that we travel, the more we have a greater understanding of different cultures, of different peoples. And that therefore increases the chance of peace, doesn't it? That's where war happens. It's not like in the past, all Germans were bad. I mean, and anybody that you have a problem with, I think it's just more about cultural understanding. I think that leads to a greater chance of peace. And that was foremost on my mind setting up Low Season Traveller. One of the problems I had with over tourism was I thought that the prices of tourism, the prices to travel, especially during peak seasons, would rise in order to manage the numbers, because it's an easy way to do it. Just add on the prices, and that will bring the numbers down, and people can still make money. And I thought, well, what does that mean for a couple of young girls that I've got upstairs in their beds right now, that when they're older, they're from a working class background in Manchester in the north of England, and they're not necessarily going to be wealthy when they're older. What does that mean for them? That unfortunately they won't be able to travel and experience the world. They won't be able to learn about different cultures. Well, that's inherently wrong. Travel has to be available to absolutely everybody, regardless of whether you're wealthy or not wealthy. And I believe passionately in that. And therefore, that again for me was, well, okay, then if the prices are going to rise during the peak season, and that's how we're going to manage those numbers in peak season, then, we need to let people know about the magic of the low seasons. And actually, let the rich guys have the peak seasons, because trust me, you're going to have a better experience actually during the low seasons, when you don't have to fight in among all of the crowds. You don't have to pay the hugely inflated prices. Actually, you can have a better experience. So don't sweat it too much.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is you got the quality of people. We're even touching on that a little bit. The locals, when you go to a low season, they don't have their backs up as much. They're more welcoming. Absolutely. They're more conversation. They want to brag about their place. When there's not those crowds, because I find when there is a crowd, everyone sorts of puts that shell on and say, okay, let's not brag too much. We don't want too many people here. And then they wait with what happens down the road. But I'm like you. I love going into the little coffee shop. I love going when it's only me in there and there's not a line up out the door and around the corner and through the downtown street. And that's how you connect with people, because you can actually talk to that barista or coffee connoisseur, or what's the new trend name. You can get a lot of good information from them, and it's real information. It's not spin.
Yeah, and it almost gives you an opportunity to, as they say, live like a local, which is, one of the sort of the trends at the moment, is to try and, I think it's that thing. I've sort of said it before to a couple of people. I think we went through this time where, it was, I need to see the world before I die. And, we have this generation where we're all taking selfies. I want my selfie next to the big tourism icon and whatever else. And I think now we're moving to an era where it's more about, I want to experience the world before I die. And that's a key difference. It's not just,
Yes.
I don't want to see the world before I die, because
Mhm.
I can tell you, and I'm almost embarrassed about this. I have traveled to over 85 countries around the world. I
Wow.
can tell you, but how many have I experienced? Truly experienced? It's probably, if I'm being very honest, I would say it's probably about 20. I've traveled a
Wow.
lot with business. I've been at shows and events, that I used to sort of travel around to. So that 85 countries, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. There's a handful that I've really had a chance to get under the skin of and really understand that destination. And that to me is the number that I'm probably more proud of. The 85 doesn't mean anything. When people say to me, I've been to 150 countries around the world, part of me is like, well, so how can you possibly have really got under the skin and understood that country, that culture, those people? Because you can't have been there very long, because it would take you, 10 lifetimes to really experience those countries.
I bet you 50 of them are counting stopovers too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just,
Yeah.
come on, really, we're better than that, aren't we?
Yeah. That's the thing. I don't really care about your numbers. What I would care about is, tell me how many great stories you got to tell me. If you got
Absolutely.
80, if you got 85, drop my draw type stories, I'm sold.
Me too.
Right? I'm in. So
I'm in. Me too. Yeah, it's all about that. It's all about that.
So Jed, COVID-19 has brought tourism. Everyone's got a different word: standstill, crisis, dead stop, devastation, whatever. For many in the tourism industry, it's time to reflect on the past, the present, and the future. There's many, from the small town to the big corporates. We're all sort of saying, okay, let's take a good look at this. We do have a chance here. And what's happening is, with all this looking into domestically and internationally, some are calling it a pivot, a reset, a restart, a rebirth. All of these fancy new terms are coming out, and the one I can't stand, just as you all know who have been to the show, pivot. I hate it. Not a good word. What I'd like to ask you about is this. In this period of rebirth, how do you see off-season travel becoming? There's an opportunity here for us to really take low-season travel and do something with it. We could spread out over tourism in those areas. And we can also build the tourism in areas that are screaming for it as a GDP. Low season traveler can be a part of this. How do you see that all unfolding?
I think it has to. I think that's the irony. Is I set this up in 2018, and the problem was over tourism. COVID-19 hit, and we went overnight to zero tourism. I was looking at the air seat capacity into Canada. And I know over the past few months that you're running about less than 40% seat capacity into and out of Canada. So for all intents and purposes, it dropped off the edge of a cliff. Yep. So here's the challenge: is when I set up Low Season Traveler, I was sort of trying to say, look, I think this is a good thing, and I think this is something that hotels and tourism bodies, they should all get involved in. Travel agents should be trying to promote low seasons as a positive thing. Here's the reality: COVID-19 has come, and you're going to have to, because I think that the tourism industry, generally speaking, are kind of locked on an early stage of. Are you guys familiar with the curve of change? You have this. I think it's Kubler-Ross did this curve of change, where you have these stages where you've got shock, denial, anger, etc. Eventually you get round to the acceptance, which is stage 7, the final stage. You get the acceptance, and that's when you're starting to move on and you're starting to innovate and think about stuff.
Okay.
I think we're all stuck at denial. Certainly in Europe, everybody's at denial. So the Greek hotelier industry and tourism industry, the same with the Spanish, the Italians. What they're saying is, look, we're still going to have our main summer season, and we can still save it because it's not into July yet. We can still have it. You're not. No. I've looked at the forward bookings and arrivals. It's not going to happen. So here's the deal: if you are wanting to try and claw back some of the money which you've been making over the past years in 2020, you're going to have to extend your season. All of a sudden, with COVID-19, it's not like, hey, do you think we should really start to promote all those? No, you absolutely have to. And if you don't realize that, then I'm afraid you need to speed yourself through the curve of change a little bit quicker, because there's too many in the global tourism industry that frankly, they're in denial and they're deluding themselves, and it's ridiculous. And I keep wondering at what point these different tourism organizations and tourism bodies are going to realize, what, actually, yeah,
Yeah.
we are going to have to extend the season if we want to get it, especially if you have social distancing rules, by the way, in properties. So if you've got a property of 200 rooms and you have to socially distance, how does that work at the buffet at breakfast in the morning? I have no idea. I have no idea. But I'm not sure that that's the experience that I want when I travel anyway. And that's your other challenge, is a lot of people are saying, you know, we've done research and people are telling us that they absolutely are still wanting very much to travel this summer and go on vacation. Well, do you know what? Me too. And also, I very much want to win the lottery, and I very much want to have a Ferrari. That's all my desires. The reality of what I will actually get and whether I'll feel comfortable enough to travel is an entirely different matter. And I think that's the other challenge, which we've alluded to before, is you have, you know, it's supply and demand, and that's what COVID-19 hit. For the first time, we had an external shock on our industry that affected both the supply and the demand simultaneously, and that's where it's unique, because, you know, right now, even if I wanted to travel to Italy or Spain or even Canada, I can't, because there are government restrictions. There are certainly fewer flights, so there's a whole load of barriers now that are in my way, even if I really wanted to travel away on holiday this summer.
Yeah, exactly. And this brings a little side note, Jed, that that got the little gerbil moving upstairs is, if this is right now, what I'm seeing across a lot of these different regions and different DMOs that are out there, one of the things is that, like you said, they're focusing on trying to salvage the last month for summer. They're putting everything they got into the staycation branding and messaging. Shouldn't we be really facing the facts right now? And shouldn't we start working on promoting our fall season like now? Because what happens is August is going to be done, and then everyone's going to figure out, are they scared to do that because of a second wave, or is it just not why are we trying to jam everything into August?
I suspect this is as simple as cash flow. You know, you've got tourism businesses that have had nothing for at least the past 3 months, and you know, like you sort of said it before. You know, there's going to be, I think the figures you gave, there's going to be like 60, worst case 60% job losses, 30% drop in tourist revenues and businesses. You know, they're just fighting to survive, and therefore, as soon as they can get any money, revenue, they have to take it. So I think that's why they're focused on the immediate, because they're in survival mode. It's not about swimming as far away as you can here. It's about actually, I just need to keep afloat. I need to make sure that we have actually got a business that will survive into the winter. That's your first priority, and I get that. So I get why some of them are still desperately trying to salvage the summer season. But I think what my message is you know, you need to have one eye on extending the seasons as well. Because no matter what, you know, you might barely keep float throughout a summer season, but if you're sort of thinking, look, you know, hey, we could survive the summer season with a 50% drop in revenues. What if it's looking more like a 20%? You know, an 80% drop in revenues. Then you know, you're going to have the next phase of your plan, and that's where you have to start having one eye on those low seasons and extending that season. That would be my take on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hosting this Keeping the Dream Alive, I believe the webinars, and I think I that's where we first met through that, and I'm very proud that we have met. I think this is going to be a long and prosperous United Kingdom Canadian bond. And one of the things I noticed is with your show, with your experience, and then also with your guests that came on that were holy crow, like bucketfuls of experience. What sort of things did you get? What sort of takeaways did you get from having your little your Keeping Your Web Alive, Keeping the Dream Alive series?
Yeah, I think it was a mixture. I mean, we had so many experts on there that are really at the top of their game in their field. You know, ranging from, you know, absolute industry leaders in aviation, giving their view on, you know, what was going to happen in aviation terms, which, you know, is, you know, to be blunt about it, is not looking good. You know, you've got a lot of the world's airlines that are going to be struggling to survive in the coming months. You had experts then on you know, on PR and public relations, how to manage a disaster. That was fascinating. You know, for me, one of those kind of takeaways, which I guess a lot of the hoteliers on here would know straight away, is any guests that you do have coming during a time like this. You know, if you're talking about having 20% arrivals, if you're going to have a massively reduced number of guests, upgrade the experience for everyone. Do not discount. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, should we be discounting then to encourage people back?" And I'm like, Absolutely no way. You've just got to make sure that anybody that does come has a knockout experience. So upgrade the experience of everyone. If it's a hotel, upgrade them all to suites. Close the bottom floors, keep the top floors open, upgrade everyone's experience.
Okay.
But you would never discount. I think as well, we learned quite a lot about, the word trust came up again and again, and I think across the global travel industry there has been an erosion of trust, and that's in the UK, and I'm sure you've had it in Canada. People have booked their travel on the outbound side, and they haven't been able to take that travel because nobody's allowed to travel.
Mhm.
But they paid a travel agent £10,000 for that holiday in May. That hasn't happened, and they, strictly speaking, should be able to get a refund within 14 days, and they haven't been getting the refunds. And they haven't been getting the refunds because if the travel agent refunds, they're not getting the money from the airline and the hotelier. They haven't been refunded by those guys, and everybody's trying to hold on to the cash because nobody's got cash coming in.
Yeah.
So the travel agent is actually turning around, and I understand it, and they're saying, look, we can't refund you until we get the refund. So then the consumers are saying, well, this is why we book through a fully bonded, reputable travel agent. When stuff goes wrong, we get our refund. And now you're saying we can't have a refund. And yet I need that refund because I've been furloughed. And actually now I can't afford that holiday anyway. So I need that £10,000. And that trust element, it's kind of being eroded everywhere. And I think that's kind of one of the concerns. That's one of the big challenges that we have as an industry. We have to rebuild that trust.
Yeah.
So for me now, people are saying, well, we'll take bookings for 2021. And I'm sort of thinking, well, before I spend £10,000 on a family holiday and book it in my travel agent for 2021, now I'm thinking, well, what happens if we have another wave of this thing? Am I going to sit around for months, 10 grand out of pocket? That's. So I think, one of the things that we talked about was that we're going to see a shortening of the lead times. So in the UK, people tend to book, 6 to 8 months in advance before before the travel date.
Yeah.
And I think, what we're looking at now is a much shorter lead time. People would be booking much nearer to their departure date.
Yeah.
And I think that makes sense. And I think that'll be replicated the world over. So, the question of trust generally, I think that was one of the big ones which came out across the series. But look, there was so much that we learned.
So what about on the other edge of the loonie for you Canadians? On the other end of the loonie, then what are some of the positives that you've heard coming out of your discussions?
I think the positives, and again we touched on this just slightly off air, but I think it's the two things really. It's the greater connections that we've had. Bizarrely, times when we're socially distancing, when we can't meet face to face, and actually the connections that I've made, and they're deep connections. These are not. These aren't just willy-nilly kind of connections. I've made really deep connections, and we all have.
Yeah.
And we've been able to access these webinars, and there's smart people like yourselves that have set up this brilliant shows that we can all benefit from. And we've had an opportunity to learn and grow like never before. But what I find it fascinating is it's independent, relatively speaking, smaller players that are the ones that are absolutely leading the industry through the crisis. And that, I think, is awesome that we have these, creative and inspirational people doing this. But then also I've got to look to authority and say, where have you guys been? Why haven't you been doing these kind of things? Where's the leadership? Because it seems to me like the leadership is coming from a place I didn't think it would come from.
Yeah. And that is a nice and pleasant surprise. I think it's just the innovation that has come out from this is mind-boggling. All the different things that are coming out, all the different technology, the different ideas of generating content, connections, establishing connections when we couldn't establish before. There is always a positive. There's always a shiny side to every loonie. I'll tell you, Jed.
Yep.
So
I absolutely agree.
One of the other things too, Jed, is in Canada, as you know, in our pre-discussion in our virtual green room, and I did ask our attendant back there, and stay out of the little goodies there, buddy. You're cleaning us out. With us, we have two ones. We have a summer and we have a winter. Some communities are blessed and they get both, and then some communities are stricken and they have zero. And there's a big gap between the big boys and the little ones that are screaming to try and generate a tourism industry. So what would you say to these communities knowing on your travel experience on an opportunity where they can maybe establish a niche through low season travel, or do they need to do like the Tofino instance where they turn storm watching into their main winter? What would you do to these communities that are out there screaming for to develop a tourism industry, and how would they go about it?
I think the first point is you just need to have an understanding, and you have to view your destination from an outsider's perspective. You have to have an understanding of what is wonderful about your destination at that particular time of the year that you're struggling to fill. What is really wonderful about it? And I think sometimes you do almost need to really try, if you can, step outside of your own shoes or get somebody else to have a look at it and find out what's wonderful about it. But like I've sort of said, a few times now, where I live, it's actually in the sort of the hills of the Pennines here in the UK. And I'd be the first to sort of say, anybody I would speak to down the street, they would say, Jesus, who the hell would ever come here?
Yeah.
Especially in the winter. We got the rain and we've got snow. And it's miserable. And actually, if you look at it from an outsider's point of view, and I've brought people here, and they're like, oh my God, these kind of rolling hills, almost like dales that you have is breathtakingly beautiful. Whether or not it's raining, you can still go on incredible country walks,
Yes.
which are just out of this world. But how many people know about it? And we've got natural beauty spots that are like 15 minutes away. And actually, as I've tried to discover them, bringing the kids out to these beauty spots, and I'm like, my God, where we live is really, really awesome.
Yeah.
But I think we need to have that appreciation of the destinations during the different times of the year, and feel a pride in those destinations in itself. And if we feel that pride, that will be infectious. You can bring people with you for the ride if you talk with pride about your destination and about what it has. And again, I can't remember if I said it off air or whether we spoke about it earlier on, but beauty is beauty, whether it's in the cold, the rain, the snow, or the sunshine. Beauty is beauty, and that's always constant. And I think you need to recognize and find where the beauty is in your destination. And that's not to also forget that it could be about the experiences in the destination and the local people. Maybe the beauty is the quirkiness and the homeliness of the people there, of the local community in the destination. Maybe that's it. And that's one of the key reasons I love to travel is to sort of to get a connection with the people. And the people are there, whether it's raining or whether it's snowing or whether it's -20 or whether it's +20. The people are there. So maybe that's the kind of side of the experience that you can bring. Maybe you believe that your town, even though it's rural and it's in the middle of nowhere, as you might think, maybe that is absolutely the essence of Canada. Maybe it's the essence of Canada. And maybe nobody else has decided to brand themselves as the absolute essence of Canada. This is the epitome of a Canadian rural town, and you've got to come and see it for yourself at all times of the year. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's your thing. I think we need to be creative about it and be leaders about it and be proud of our destinations.
Yes. And that brings up an interesting point too, because when we're talking with our clientele, if they own a resort or whatever, a B&B, a kayak company, a river rafting, one of the things that we always say to them, usually in the introductions, is that a host can ruin an accommodation, or it can make the accommodation. It's not necessarily the quality, because if I'm coming in and I'm paying for $100 room, I know what I'm getting. I'm not getting the Ritz. I know I'm getting a $100 room, okay, or a $60 room, or I'm paying for a $400 room. Here's the thing. How's that host at the $100 room treating and making my experience wonderful? And then I go to the 400 and I'm a number and they shoo me off and they don't even say hi or bye. And it's the host. I will never go to that $400 guy again. But next time in that small community with the $100 guy, I'm in your room and I'll tell everybody about it.
Yeah. And I think as well, you will one of the things that came out, actually, it was in one of those WeTech webinars. One of the hoteliers was coming out saying that it's been pretty much proven that with a hotel, the nearer you get to full occupancy, the worse the experience is.
I believe that.
So, the service levels go down and everything else. So the closer you get to 100% occupancy, the experience starts to go down. And think of the seasonality issue as a little bit like that. The more busy the destination is, people have got less time for you. The service levels go down. The quieter it is, and if you're in a town, a provincial town in Canada, and you've got a relatively small town, your experience is probably way better than the big cities, actually. And for me, as a low season traveler, that there's something, quite, as I'm even describing this provincial town that I don't even know where it is in Canada or what it is, but as I'm describing it, I know I'm getting excited.
I know a really good website you could use.
Yeah, I know. I need to get on there and plan my trip. Absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right.
So, buddy, here's a question. So before we let you go, I know Susan Kavanaugh's had some questions here, but it's tough to get questions in when it's such a good conversation between United Kingdom and Canada, bridging the Atlantic, as they say.
Atlantic. Love that.
So, what is there anything you'd like to leave with our Canadian knuckleheads out here, and let us a little bit of insight of something that you'd like to cover, or something that we didn't cover enough that you'd like to leave with our Canadian audience?
No, really. I think, overall, my message is, I set up Low Season Traveler. I'm still, to date, the only organization in the world that is solely focused on travel during the low seasons.
Yep.
I always said I never aspire to be a tour operator or a travel agent. What I do want to do is I want to shine a spotlight on different destinations during their low seasons. So what I would say to everybody out there is, if you've got a destination that is, in your opinion, utterly wonderful during the low seasons, then please get in touch with me. It's jed@lowseasontraveler.com. The details are on the website, which is lowseasontraveler.com. And I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to shine a spotlight on you. And if you've got a destination and you'd like to be on the podcast that we run, again, I'd love to shine the spotlight on you. And be proud of your low seasons and be proud of your destinations. That's nice. To me the overall message.
Well, one of the things, Jed, I'm going to let you know, we've been flashing your website all over this TV screen last hour. So I think they got that. But what they don't, you might want to shout out there is maybe give them that email address again, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's just Jed, GED, @lowseasontraveler.com. And that's personal email address. Come straight through to me, and I'd love to hear from you, and see if we can maybe shine a spotlight on your destination.
You're the man. Okay, and they can also, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Brown, but they can find you on LinkedIn and also on Twitter. Yeah,
LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, @lowseasontraveler.
Okay,
that's me. All of those places. Would love to have your likes, your shares, your comments. Again, I'm a relatively small business as well, and therefore every single like and follow means the absolute world to me, as I'm sure it does to all of you guys as well.
Yep, exactly. So again, everyone, please take the time, write this website down, and connect with Jed if you're a Lincolnite. Like some of us here, I really enjoy being a Lincolnite. If you're one, then make sure you look up Mr. Jed Brown at Low Season Traveler. And there's also a lot of other interesting people that I'm sure Jed would be love to talk to you to. The big thing here with Mr. Jed Brown is, if you are a low season, you want to know anything about that, you got his information, give him a shout. Jed will give you his time, his insight, and he will help you walk your way through this low season traveler cloud we seem to have out there in the global tourism economy. And let's get rid of that cloud. Let Jed help you put some sunshine. How's that, Jed? A little bit of segue.
Love that.
So we're going to have to let you go, Jed. I hope you do come back. I really enjoy. I know it's a little early for you out there, but I really appreciate it.
It's been good fun. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Yeah.
So what we'll do there, Jed, is we'll just give you this, what we call the Air 5 to let you go, because those physical distancing.
Boom, loving that.
Okay, and we'll be in touch, Jed, and we'll definitely connect with you tomorrow and show you the edited version. But for now, Jed, thank you very much. And to all the United Kingdom out there, we love you. Stay safe. Hello from Canada.
Thanks a million, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jed.
So there you have it. How awesome are those guys, right? I definitely will try and get them on our show at some point in the future to let us know a little bit more about their favourite low season spots in Canada. And also, of course, I'll make sure it's 3 a.m. their time. Look, please do check out acanadatravel.com and recommend it to your friends and family as the absolute encyclopedia of travelling in and to Canada. Great also for any travel agents listening out there too. Thanks as always for your company. Have a great week. Stay healthy, stay safe, keep your travel dreams alive, and don't forget to share this podcast with your friends, family, and social networks. And remember, now more than ever, travel is better without the crowds.